by governments of their people was a basic principle on which the United States should be an acknowledged champion.
We said to the president, we are not going to let you put pressure on us. This is an internal matter. We are not going to discuss the subject with you.
I was deeply committed to human rights. I felt this was important, but I will not hide the fact that I also thought that there was some instrumental utility in our pursuit of human rights vis-à-vis the Soviet Union. And raising the issue of human rights pointed to one of the fundamental weaknesses of the Soviet system, namely that it was a system based on oppression.
In Czechoslovakia, dissidents secretly drew up Charter 77, a human rights document that was smuggled to the West. The signatories were persecuted. Many were imprisoned, including playwright Václav Havel. Under house arrest, Havel made a clandestine recording.
That special house, what you see now, it isn't the dream of Corbusier, but I think more dream of George Orwell, because it is House of Police, which it built 3 months ago, and the whole day, every day, they live inside and they follow all my steps and everything what I do in my country house. Sometimes they are here also during the night, but mainly only during the day. They are my new neighbors.
Even as he walked his dog, police kept close. Yet he had a sense of freedom and achievement.
I know from my experience collecting signatures for the Charter how tortuous it was for people till they decided to sign. When they did sign, they found themselves in a state of euphoria. It was a community of free people in the middle of an unfree society. They had a feeling of harmony with themselves.
Human rights activists in the communist bloc set up Helsinki watch committees to monitor and publicize human rights abuse. Close links with the Western media were forged by dissidents such as physicist Andrei Sakharov.
То, что можно назвать словом «мы», это действительно очень небольшая группа людей, которые позволили себе говорить то, что они думают. И мы в этом смысле, это не политическая партия, рвущаяся к власти, это морально-этическая оппозиция существующей власти, причем стремящаяся к реформам, а не к каким-то революционным переменам.
Systematically intimidated, dissidents ended up in KGB prisons.
Опасность диссидентов была в том, что их критика
The threat was that their criticism of the Communist Party and the socialist way of life would become a platform for attacking the regime.
Платформу, так сказать, критики всего строя, который существовал в стране.
It could turn into an organized political force.
Идеологически будет господствовать в массах, а завтра это перельет.
That was what we were afraid of.
Вот этого и боялись.
Jews were a distinctive group among the dissidents. They claimed the right to leave the Soviet Union, but many were refused exit visas and became known as refuseniks. Those who campaigned for their rights were often punished with long prison sentences in forced labor camps, along with other political activists. One refusenik imprisoned in Latvia was Yakov Raskin.
The whole territory was surrounded by armed guards with dogs. The door would open, and we would be split up into work groups, 5 people in each group. Then, in a few seconds, we had to jump into those trucks, and it was like a closed cage inside. I could see people outside in the streets. Everyone was getting on with life, and I was jealous of them all. I was envying them, and my heart was aching.
Another way of silencing Soviet dissidents was to label them insane and put them in mental hospitals. Mind control drugs were used to make them recant.
They would tie us up for long periods. They gave us handfuls of drugs 3 times a day, so the body couldn't stand it anymore. I was dumb for 2 years. I couldn't speak. My whole mouth and jaw were paralyzed. My tongue was swollen. My arms and legs were shaking. I was dribbling. I couldn't eat. I couldn't unclench my teeth to force the food into my mouth.
Soviet doctors who exposed the psychiatric abuse to the West risked imprisonment. Dr. Anatoly Karyagin was jailed for 12 years.
I said to myself, I can't be silent when people are kept in psychiatric hospitals for their political beliefs. We can't live on our knees like slaves when they do these things.
In prison, Karyagin refused to admit any wrongdoing.
They tried to break my will. In January, they opened all the doors, letting in the cold air. They poured cold water on me. My body came out in huge pimples. They put a bowl of hot water next to me and said, "Wash yourself." I just lay there next to that hot water because I was protesting. It was like having food put in front of you on a hunger strike.
In 1978, the prominent refusenik Anatoly Sharansky was sentenced to 13 years for espionage and treason. Outside the court, supporters, who included Andrei Sakharov, defiantly publicized Sharansky's case to the Western media. The KGB and the police looked on.
Чтение приговора может быть осуществлен только председатель суда должен решать, можно ли пустить на приговор.
Когда на Западе протестовали против тех и других действий,
When there were protests, and when material was published in the Western press about violations of human rights, there was indignation.
сразу было, естественно, возмущение.
The KGB reaction was, those wicked people have penetrated our defenses and published information in the West. Punish them.
Наказать.
The Sharansky trial triggered forceful protests in the West. The fate of political prisoners became a key issue in American politics.
The trials which began yesterday in the Soviet Union have serious implications for the future relations between the United States and the USSR.
The United States Congress and the Helsinki Watch Committees monitored Soviet behavior.
But I'm not at all a specialist in regard to military matters. But I do not trust the Soviet government.
The evidence of human rights abuse inflamed anti-Soviet feeling in America. Moscow and Washington were clashing over human rights. They were updating their arsenals. Yet they stepped up negotiations for a new arms limitation treaty SALT II. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union was deploying its new medium-range nuclear missiles, the SS-20s. They were targeted on Western Europe.
Но делалось это.
The decision to deploy the SS-20s was made in total secrecy. Even our intelligence didn't know about it. The military-industrial complex was out of control, including the army. We in intelligence learnt about it from Western sources.
The SS-20 missiles alarmed the NATO allies, particularly the West Germans. With a range of 3,000 miles, these missiles could hit their capitals.
No one had any plan to attack Europe using SS-20s. At first, they were just a replacement of old, obsolete rockets. Then the conveyor belt started working, and it went on and on. It was difficult to stop the production line.
Yet the new Soviet missiles were not on the agenda of the SALT II negotiations.
In my view, it was dangerous that the Americans refused, for such a long time, to include the Soviet SS-20s in the ongoing arms reduction talks.
I remember being somewhat startled when Chancellor Schmidt started making a big issue out of the SS-20s. But then I came to realize that, in a sense, he was right, namely that the